See, but you think that someday you're going to become an adult, right? You know, you're going to really grow up, because you know you're not really growing up now, right? See, but you figure you're going to grow up, right? Someday you'll be a real person, a real adult, a genuine real adult. No, you won't. No, you won't. Left to your own devices, you won't. That's not something that happens just because. See, you think it happens just because, like, your body got big, you know, you used to be little and you got big, you know, I say, okay, I'm going to get big, you know, right? See, because that's what happens with the bodies, right? And I'm going to become an adult, and I'm going to, stuff like that, and I'm going to get a license to drive, whatever, you know, all these things. Okay, good, that unfolds, right? I'll get an education, and maybe I'll get a job, you know? When you start looking for a job, then it becomes a little bit more demanding, right? See, it's like, oh, I don't get to be a fireman? Well, you can if you want, really, see, but you know, it's these I have to actually ground myself in something. I can't just, you know, live in, okay, Fantasyville, you know, someday something's gonna happen like that, right? See, so that might kick a little butt, right? If you get married or something, that'll kick a lot of butt. And then you'll probably get divorced in 3 years. Most people do, you know. There's a reason for that, but it's another story. You know, or you go through it and mature or whatnot. But what I'm saying is that you don't grow up just because or by default. It's something you have to do. You know, like leave your parents for real. There. Not the people. They're irrelevant. See, it's how they're stuck here, right? See how they're stuck here, not the people. Living or dead, they could be dead, you know. For it doesn't make any difference, right? See, but you let go of that, right? Really grow up. So you become a real, genuine human being. Emphasis on the being. See, that's where I put the emphasis on the being. So imagine that. Do that now. Do that now. Work there right now in this experience. Grow up so you're free of all that childish shit, all the dependency. You're free of the values and judgments. You're free of the programming. You're free of the family perspective of how the world has to work, etc. You're free of all of it. What you do after that, it's irrelevant right now. It's irrelevant. So you just be free of that so that you stand as a real, genuine human being drawing breath in this moment. It's kind of poetic, isn't it? For real, not like a fantasy. You're just doing a fantasy. Do it for real. Do it for real. Present, right here. This one. This person right here. Genuine person. No bullshit, no pretense, no act, no history that you're bound to. No ties, no attachments, etc., but an actual adult right now, a genuine person in this moment. A real person, not dependent on anything, not afraid of the world, not sucking the tit of something, a job, a relationship, parents. So can you do that? Can you give up the dependency? Can you give up the attachments? Can you give up the, yeah.
You just get scared of the thought, for the most part.
Yeah.
Agitation, my chest.
Yeah. Imagine what it would be like for you if you did that. If you actually stood on your own 2 feet and created your own life without being dependent on anybody. Imagine how you'd feel about yourself. See, there's 2 major aspects that would be radically different. Yeah? See, one, you would immediately move into a disposition of being an adult and taking care of himself. That'd be very different for you. Very different, right? And Two, you would have a much higher self-esteem. Right? See? You'd be like a man, taking care of yourself. See what I'm saying? I'm doing this. I'm a real adult. I'm a real person. Yeah? I'm not saying do it. I'm just saying. See? Can you imagine the difference? You know, and the power of that? I would like to be able to communicate to children in such a way they could get how they're actually choosing and crafting their self as they grow. It's not going to happen, okay? But I'm just saying, see, that would be interesting, you know? See, you could probably get little bits and pieces, at least as like kind of a belief system of that, you know, crafting yourself, you're making choices, you know? And you could perhaps, you know, give different ways of looking at it so they can see that, like that one I liked. What was it? I don't remember, but about the feeding, you know. If you feed this, it grows.
The story of the wolves with the Native American. Is it?
I don't remember wolves, but
It's a Native American story about each person has within them two wolves. One of them is like the one that goes towards the bad and the anger and the selfishness, and then the other one's like towards the good and the, you know, whatever, everything good, high
Right.
integrity, all that stuff. And
right.
we're like, well, which
And if
one?
you feed one,
Right,
it'll grow. It's which one will, you know,
Which
if you
one
don't
you're gonna
feed the
feed.
other one, what's going to happen to them?
right.
Kind of thing, right? Yeah, I think it was a little different story, but the same meaning. See, and the basic, right? See, it's like, so what in you feed? Kind of like going back to we were talking about clean up your house. See, what in you feed? See, what are you feeding? See, what are you feeding? What are you feeding? What do you give power to? What do you give life to? If you give life to a lot of doubt or negativity, fear, etc., you know, badness, I said negativity. Well, it's double negative. Does two negatives make a positive?
No, in this
Okay.
case.
All right. No, in any case, you see, then that tends to grow. See, and like when we talk about, say, well, what goes on in there? What goes on in there has no consequences. It doesn't make any difference. Of course it does. It makes a huge difference. It is your life. It is exactly your life. It is your experience of life. It's experience of you. It's experience of your abode, right? However, whatever distinctions you make about your abode, whatever you have, you know, whatever that is created and what you do there, that's your experience. Where else does it exist? See? And you say, oh, it has no consequences? Of course it does. And so when you create, you know, stupid stuff, right? You know, or evil stuff, you see, you know, or weak stuff, or whatever it is, you see, then that grows. You feed it, you see. On the other hand, if you know, feed the good stuff, positive stuff, powerful stuff, whatever, empowering stuff, clarity, communication, see, then that grows. And that's the world in which you're living. And of course, since, you know, you always have the both, right? You always have the choice, because it's a binary choice, positive and negative, right? World and whatnot. So you can also see, and this is another thing at times people don't appreciate, whereas sometimes in the times past, sometimes and in some ways people did appreciate, which is if you're afraid, you see, instead of feeding the fear, you have the fear, but instead of feeding the fear, you do the courageous thing. Do you see how that changes then your experience? See, so you experience yourself as being courageous even though you had the fear. Instead of you have the fear and you do the cowardly thing. And that feeds the fear, and it also feeds your sense of yourself as, you know, being a coward. You see? But then you go, hey, even if it's just not just, you know, behaviors or actions external to yourself, but inside yourself, so to speak. You see, the world in there. You do the courageous thing in there. You see?